Hey and welcome to my video. In this particular video, I'm going to talk about curve. If you need to learn only one tool in photo editing or even video editing, that would be curve. Let me show you in this video why. Now, I've got a software open. It's called SilkyPix Developer Studio Pro, but you should have curves pretty much every single photo editing software. All of them function exactly the same way. Right, I've got a tone curve here. So now this is a photograph and you have a histogram. If you look inside the curve and histogram, you have the histogram behind the curve line. So this is what the curve look like, and you got multiple numbers, input and output level, and the level correction. You don't need to worry about it too much. I'm going to show you how exactly that function and why this is really important tool, basically one of the most important tool in photography editing. Now let's say this photograph looks all right. It has like a nice little curve. The mid-tone is beautiful. White balance is pretty much on the dot. Not too bright, not too dark. But let's say you want to add some contrast. So in order to do the contrast, you can go up. So as you can see that already the brightness is going way too high. But pay attention to the brightest part, the white part. Nothing is way too overexposed, even though you pull the brightness up a little bit. Now you want to add some black or shadow. So you want to pull the far left down. As you can see, it created like a nice S curve, which is one of the most popular curve in photography to add some nice and quick contrast. So what is happening here exactly? I mean, I just told you what it does, but I didn't tell you why it does it. So in order to understand curve, the curve separated by three different areas of the photography. You have highlight right there, or the brightest part of the photograph. Then you have this mid-tone right there, or pretty much in this area. And then you have the dark area, or shadow, or black, whatever you want to call it. They all means the same. If you look at the photograph and see whatever the dark area, this should be in this section, and the gamma, brightness, or mid-tone, they're all in the middle, and the whitest part, generally the sky, the bright sunlight, or anything really bright, generally in this section. So this is how we can control the entire contrast of a photography. Now I'm gonna go back to the actual photograph. So we pulled down the shadow and we pulled up the brightness, hence you have a nice contrast. However, if you pay attention to before and after, like this was the previous photograph and this is after adding S, the saturation also went up. So the photograph also look well saturated as well, not just the contrast of the luminance. What that means, I actually add color contrast and the luminance contrast because I use the RGB curve, which is the red, green, and blue curve all together. So I'm playing with the color, not just the light, pretty much. If you want to avoid saturating your photograph while adding contrast, there is another way to do that, which is L. L means luminance, which means you are playing with just the brightness of a photography. You are not touching anything inside the color section. So what that means that again I'm going to add like a little S curve by pulling up the brightness or the highlight area, like in this section. You don't want to touch there, you want to touch somewhere in this section. Now don't worry about the middle part. All you have to do, pull down the shadow. Now this is brilliant. Now you can tell that you just added just contrast. There is no change in color. Color still look quite flat. And that is really important if you already have kind of like a well saturated photography and you don't want to change the color contrast and just want to add some luminance contrast. This is where the L comes in play. Now, I showed you how the RGB and the L curve works, but what happens to the color? So what if you want to play with the color now? Now, this is where things get complicated, and this is where you have to learn and then practice quite a lot. So I'm just gonna go one at a time, starting with R curve. So I'm just going to play with the red channel of this photograph. what happens now? What's happening if I do exactly the same S curve with the R channel? What happens? Why not I show you? So what I'm doing, I'm adding extra red on the bright area where, but it's happening the global change because everything is went up. So that's why you have this like a red cast all over the photograph. But if I pull down on the dark area, this is where you can create some amazing photograph just using those individual red, green, and blue channels. So I just add a red S curve. What's happening now? Just simply to explain, the bright area has like a red curve, red cast, have like a kind of like a red overall color cast. But if you pay attention to the dark area right there into the shadow or anything black, they remain not only red free, but they became more green, because opposite of red is green. Why not I show you in the, this is a color chart. What I did, I added extra red onto the midtone and the highlight, but in the shadow I took off the red, so therefore as a result it became a little bit green like now. So that's what you can do. You can take away red from certain area of your photograph and add some extra red on wherever you want. So that's how powerful the curve is. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing with blue or green. Why not green? So I'm going to do exact same thing. Let's say I want to add some more green into the highlight area by going up. So as you can see that overall it has like a green cast. Now I don't want that into my shadow, but I want to add some red into the shadow area. So you have like a nice green onto the highlight area where the shadow area became a bit more green. So you can play with it all day long and create some phenomenal photographs just using one tool, which is curve. That's how powerful the curve is. And if you know how to learn curve, you don't even have to touch any contrast slider or color slider or saturation. You can just play with curve and then do whatever you want to do. And then resting left is to add sharpness or noise reduction. I hope this video has been very useful. Play with curve, create some amazing photography. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And I see you in the next video. Have a wonderful time. I'm signing off.